Hey, what's going on everybody? Justin here, and in this video I think I have 17 Greek history related books to share with you all. I say recently, a few months ago I did a Roman history book kind of on the same theme, and I had some comments asking for like a Greek version of that kind of video, so I'll leave that link up there if you want to watch the Roman rendition as well. But yeah, let's just get right into it, otherwise this video is going to be like 1,000 hours long. But leave some comments down below about which ones sound like your favorites or what you would pick up first, or if you have some good Greek history recommendations that I don't mention, leave those in the comments down below as well. So first up, I figured I'd start with some kind of like broader ones and then kind of go into some of like more specific cities. But I got here The Naked Olympics by Tony Peritet, and I also want to recommend The Ancient Olympics by Nigel Spivey. I thought I still had it. I don't know if I got rid of that one or what, but I couldn't find it. But I read both of these like back to back, way back in the day. And I just found them really interesting. You learn all about how the actual, Olympic Games, how they really function. What was it like to actually be a spectator, watching the different events? What were the actual events that were being there? What were some of the rules and different kind of things kind of going on? And it's kind of funny just like learning about some of the archaic kind of just like silly games that they had too. Like for example, like running in full armor, but it was like the armor from the dark ages of Greece, like way before even like the Persian Wars and stuff. It was that kind of funny bell plate armor almost. And they were kind of just like honorary games and things like that. But you learn, like the Pancration, which is like basically the origins of MMA, and there's almost like no rules at all and stuff. But you get lots of cool like little vignettes and things too, little biographies of like Milo Croton and stuff, who was like a famous Olympian. What did you expect if you actually won the game? What did that really mean for you, with your awards and, tax-free status a lot of times and stuff. I just found them really entertaining, and I think a lot of people will as well. Now, for a kind of a general history of kind of the development of the Greek city-states, the polis, we got a history of the Greek city-states, 700 to 338 BC by Raphael Seeley, and I really enjoyed. I read most of this, I think it was like in college days and stuff, so I probably really should sit down and actually read it. I got this one and another one where I'm not sure if I actually read the whole book through back then. But yeah, this is like kind of a history of the development of how did the city-states really kind of get started, because you're starting in kind of like that kind of weird dark ages and things, but you kind of go through the creation of different city-states, the different population migrations where other city-states have to be founded due to like population stressors, things like that. But then you kind of deal into more like how did the different kind of coalitions and leagues, like the different hegemonic leagues, for example, between like Sparta and Athens and stuff during the Peloponnesian War, and then kind of followed afterwards towards more, I guess, maybe not neutral leagues, isn't probably the, I guess, non-hegemonic leagues where everyone is vaguely equal and stuff. But I just found it really interesting. It is one I highly recommend on kind of a general overview of kind of like, not a nitty-gritty like military history, because that's not really what it's dealing with per se, but kind of like a political history of kind of the formation of the Greek city-states. I don't know, I just found it really interesting and well written. So now let's go into a couple specific Greek polis, and the first one is the one I can't stand, which is Sparta. I know it's heresy. Sparta's like super popular. I don't get the whole Spartan culture thing, why everyone kind of reveres it and whatnot. But we've got Spartans by Paul Cartledge, The World of the Warrior Heroes of Ancient Greece, and you can't really go wrong with any Paul Cartledge books. He's got probably a dozen. I think I got like one or two others, here, like written by him on just like ancient Greece and stuff. But this one, I've read three different books on Sparta, and this is the best one, I guess, for readability and just kind of like a general overview. Like I said, I just think the whole culture is a bit ridiculous and super overhyped. But if that is your thing, I definitely go into it with this one. Now, Paul Cartledge also wrote a book on my favorite Greek polis, which is Thebes, the Forgotten City of Ancient Greece. I really enjoyed this one. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased and stuff because it was my favorite. Thebes definitely gets a bad rap because they Medized, which during the Persian Wars they kind of defected over to the Persian side. But really, if you look at the map and stuff, a bunch of the Greek city-states said, we're gonna guard the passes like over here and stuff, and everyone kind of north, you kind of just gotta like handle it on your own. And Thebes was like, well, we're like up there, we can't like do it by ourselves. So they're just like, yeah, we'll just like join them and stuff. But you learn all about like the Theban hegemony. Like just for example, like a lot of people that love Sparta don't realize that Thebes just like kicked Sparta's ass like a couple generations after the Peloponnesian War. You know, got the battles of Mountaineer and Leuctra and stuff. They freed all the Messenian like helots and everything, and they got to found their own city. And that's due to Thebes kind of like leading kind of a coalition against Sparta during that time period. So definitely like check that out if that sounds interesting. And then for Athens, I got 2 books. I'm going to go into some books I don't have physical copies of after this one. But we've got Lords of the Sea by John Hale, the epic story of the Athenian Navy and the birth of democracy. I did like how this one, Athens is kind of another one of those like weird city-states. You always learn about Sparta and Athens, even though both of them are kind of like on 2 separate ends of the spectrum. They're on like Greek polis, on like how they actually function and operate. You know, Sparta's like you know, owning all like the Messenian helots and stuff, and then having like a dual monarchy and all that kind of just craziness, and actually like a standing army. Then you have like the Athenian just demagoguery, where you know it was like the most like just open democracy, like pretty much like ever in existence and stuff. Just 2 complete opposites. But anyways, this is all about kind of Athenian naval power, which is really how Athens was able to kind of like get going, get, you know, just kind of surpass everyone for a while, especially like as kind of the hegemon of the Delian League and everything. And also if you like, you know, if you look at like, you know, the map of Greece, ancient Greece, well, I guess the map is pretty much the same, but you know, all the different islands and coastal settlements and everything, being a naval power definitely helps kind of combine things a lot more than like overland routes and stuff. So it definitely shows that. Plus, kind of shows how the democracy really flourishes with the kind of rise of the naval power, and some of it's kind of a myth and some of it's not. Just based on, you know, like all our oarsmen and stuff being, what do you call it, like active in the military service makes them kind of more effective in promoting themselves, and, you know, to have like kind of a democratic vote and everything. Whereas before, you know, only like kind of the aristocrats and kind of like wealthier people could be hoplites and fight, and there's kind of there's a little bit more nuance to it than that, but it kind of goes into that, and I enjoyed it. Now let's go on to some digital copies of books I don't have. Kind of sticking with the Athenian theme, we got Rise of Athens, the story of the world's greatest civilization by Anthony Everett. And this is just a really good kind of political overview of the entire practical history of Athens, from like, you know, the archaic Dark Ages all the way down to like the Roman conquest and stuff. My favorite parts are actually kind of towards the end, when they're kind of trying to, when they finally see the writing on the wall against like Macedon and things like that. But Anthony Everett has written tons of books on like the classical world. A bunch of Byrsic, I think was the Cicero and Hadrian, I think down here. I think he's got like a book on like the rise of Rome, stuff like that. I think this is one of his only Greek ones from what I remember, but he's very readable, and if you're like brand new to the subject, I highly recommend it, just for like kind of the readability and like kind of, you know, the pleasure of actually being able to get through something like on one pass. Now let's go on to a couple Macedonian stuff. I'm just going to count like Alexander and Macedon as like part of the kind of, I guess, the Greek theme for this video. I don't think I'd have enough for just like a standalone Macedonian video per se. But we've got James Rom, who actually has 2 books, but the first one here is Ghost on the Throne, The Death of Alexander the Great and the War for Crown and Empire. I really enjoyed this one. This is all about the wars of the Diadochi, which I think there hasn't been that many written on it, which is kind of they're known as the Successor Wars. And it's where, you know, Alexander's lieutenants and generals took it quite literally. You know, there's the myth that, well, I guess, you know, we don't actually know, but the has come down to us that Alexander said, like on his deathbed, you know, when he was asked, well, who should rule your empire, and he goes, to the strongest. And they took that quite literally, and you know, immediately just like fought some civil wars and stuff. And this is sort of the formation of the, you know, the Seleucid Empire, you know, the Antigonid dynasty, Ptolemy in Egypt, stuff like that. So it's a very confusing time in history. I think that's why a lot of times like it kind of gets glossed over a little bit, and there's not like tons written on it per se, even though there is a lot of crazy stuff sort of going on. I really enjoyed it. And another one kind of on the other end there, we got The Last Kings of Macedonia and the Triumph of Rome by Ian Worthington. And this is sort of like the last like couple of generations of, you know, Macedon and like kind of Hellenic power, as the, you know, Rome has, you know, already conquered Carthage. Well, I guess the Third Punic War still kind of like has to happen and stuff. But, you know, they've conquered most of like the Western Mediterranean. You know, you have the battles of like kind of Cephalae, Battle of Pydna and stuff, where the the legions kind of like overpower the pike phalanxes of the successor states, and you know it's pretty much over at that point. But this kind of just details like what's his name, Philip V and Perseus, who are the last kings of Macedon, and kind of what they tried to do to stop stem the tide against Rome and everything. Such as like allying with Hannibal, which probably actually in hindsight, since they didn't really help a lot with the actual Punic War that Hannibal fought in, was probably just a bad move, because that kind of leads into like all the Macedonic wars and everything. But I really enjoyed it, and yeah. Next up, we got another book, the other book by James Romm, and this is Demetrius, Sacker of Cities, which I just kind of want to include because there's a lot of figures that don't get a lot written on them, and Yale has this like Ancient Lives book series that they're going with, and like Demetrius is the son of Antigonus Monophthalmus, who was like one of the successors to Alexander that I was talking about, but his name is is it Poliorcetes, something like that, which literally means like destroyer, besieger of cities, just because he was just really big into like siege warfare and finding different ways to take down walls and like infiltrate like settlements and everything like that. So I just kind of wanted to include that, like it's always fun just to kind of find like little biographies or little histories on like little really niche topics and things, and like I said, I just want to include it. And overall, I've been really enjoying that series, except for the one on Marcus Aurelius, which was a shame. And then lastly, we got kind of like an intellectual one. We got the Children of Athena, Greek intellectuals in the Age of Rome, 250 BC to 400 AD. And this is all about pretty much any like prominent Greek thinker kind of during the Roman hegemony, when the Republic was kind of at its height, down through like the Roman imperial period and stuff. But it's not just philosophers, though philosophers are included. They're also like mathematicians, like Archimedes, for example, in Syracuse. See, that would be good. Like a book on just Syracuse would be really fun. If you got a recommendation for that, let me know about that. But to see like other ones, like there's geographers like Strabo, Eratosthenes, who's like the librarian of Alexandria and stuff. Philosophers such as I think the last one is Hypatia in Alexandria, like during kind of like the Christian times of the Roman imperial period. But even like historians like Polybius and stuff are included. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and a few other like booktubers and other people have like commented that they didn't mind reading it and kind of like learned a lot from it as well. So it's just kind of cool learning about like kind of how Greek culture really still like permeated throughout kind of Roman culture, even during kind of the heyday of like the Pax Romana and things like that. All right, so if you made it this far, thank you so much. We got a few more books here. If you do want to support the channel, besides like liking and subscribing, all that kind of stuff, definitely check out my Etsy shop, where I sell different things. Like, of course, I had to put my little Know Thyself one, just talking about Greek stuff and everything. But I got like different philosophy, nature, all kinds of stuff like that. But anyways, moving on. We got Edith Hamilton's Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes. I also have her Greek Way right here. I haven't read this one. I have read the Roman Way. But since I enjoyed the Roman Way, I think the Greek Way is probably going to be in a similar vein. This is definitely the best, like, one-volume kind of just mythology book I think I've read. I think I've read, like, 3 or 4. The Stephen Fry one is also pretty good, too, like, that whole kind of trilogy of things he's got going on there. But I definitely kind of just prefer I'm not always, like, a super... I have to be in the mood for like kind of comedy and stuff, so I definitely enjoy the Edith Hamilton's Mythology. And if you like stories of mythology and stuff, this is definitely like kind of the go-to. And the Greek Way is definitely going to be more on like kind of different cultural currents of the Greek peoples during the ancient Greece. Like let's see if I read a couple chapter titles, they'll probably explain that a little bit better. Like the religion of the Greeks, the way of the Greeks. Euripides, the modern mind, the idea of tragedy, things like that. So the Greek way of writing, you kind of get a lot of the kind of cultural stuff going on as well. Next up, apparently, is another Macedonian book. I forgot to like put it in the right sequence there, but we got Philip and Alexander, Kings and Conquerors by Adrian Goldsworthy. He's probably most known for a lot of his like Roman history stuff. But I remember getting this one and reviewing it when it first came out, and I really enjoyed it because it is, lots of times you get books on Alexander and Philip is kind of just mentioned in the first chapters or two or whatever, whereas I think half this book is dedicated to Philip, Philip II really, kind of paved the way for Alexander and actually kind of transforming Macedonian military and political scene into something that could actually be used to like fight the Persians and stuff. Highly recommend it. It is a big book, but thoroughly readable as well. Now for like more purely Greek like kind of warfare and stuff, we have Donald Kagan's Histories of the Peloponnesian War. He has a 1-volume history. But he also has a 4-volume set here on the Peloponnesian War. I just grabbed the second one right here because I haven't read this one. I have read the outbreak of the Peloponnesian War. But yeah, it's definitely like the gold standard on kind of the history of, the war between Athens and Sparta and their kind of associated leagues. So yeah, definitely read it. I've actually heard though that the 1-volume edition isn't like that good to read, just because it's just almost like too jam-packed in a way, and it's kind of really condensed and it's just like bang bang bang, whereas this has like lots of footnotes and commentary and that sort of thing, and it definitely is kind of like a slower grind, for sure. For another book actually on that I would prefer for a 1-volume, though I haven't read Kagan's 1-volume. I just have the Dust Jacket, but Song of Wrath, who is actually the author, London apparently is the last name. I did enjoy this a long time ago. J.E. London, which is kind of more focused on the beginning of the Punic Wars, the Peloponnesian War and stuff. But yeah, like I said, Donald Kagan is like kind of considered like the gold standard of Peloponnesian War studies. Now, kind of a fun one I wanted to include was The Extraordinary Voyage of Pytheas the Greek by Barry Cunliffe. And he's kind of like a historian on like Celtic cultures and stuff. But for those who don't know who Pytheas was, he was a Greek from Massalia, which is basically the equivalent of like Marseille, France today. And he went on kind of just like an anthropological journey through like the river systems of Europe, went around the British Isles, potentially to Thule, like Iceland or something, maybe like Norway. And he kind of just wrote about a bunch of different cultures that he experienced and stuff and saw and like communicated with. Though granted, like his writings didn't come down to us, but there are fragments based on like other sources and stuff. So I just found it super fun. It's basically like a really ancient like version of a travelogue. I just found it really enjoyable, and it's kind of just like a different take on like kind of like Greek experience. And then lastly, for 2 more military histories, we got The First Clash by Jim Lacey, the miraculous Greek victory at Marathon and its impact on Western civilization. All about the Battle of Marathon, which is the first contact between Persia and Greece on the mainland of Greece. This is like kind of Darius's retribution against Athens when they sent some assistance to like kind of help foment a rebellion in Ionia. But yeah, this is all about kind of the lead up and the actual battle of Marathon. How did it occur? How did the Greeks actually win that so like triumphantly? Stuff like that. I found it really interesting. There is like one section I still don't really agree with where he kind of makes the argument that the Greeks and their full hoplite armor and shields and everything literally sprinted the mile and then fought in combat. I don't know if I still haven't found a way to like believe that like exactly per se just like that, but found it really interesting. A lot of people enjoy books on the Persian Wars, though I don't think I've ever read a book just strictly only on the Persian Wars, though I do know there are a few of them out there. Now like military histories generally aren't my thing, but here's like the other book I was telling you about. I read, I think like in college and stuff, and I don't know if I read it straight through, and it's yeah, there's not really much to show here. I don't have a dust jacket, but we got Anderson's Military Theory and Practice in the Age of Xenophon, which I found really interesting because since I like Thebes and stuff, this is all about kind of Greek warfare in the couple of generations after the Peloponnesian War, and there's actually quite a bit changing. Like light infantry are becoming a thing. A lot of the heavy armor has since the Persian Wars, like every generation kind of gets a little bit like lighter. But after the Peloponnesian War, like a lot of their armor is quite trimmed down compared to kind of like the full classic bronze panoply that we always kind of like imagine with like the giant Corinthian helm and things like that. Whereas like a Corinthian helm in this time period would almost be seen as kind of like retro or archaic or something. But I just found it really interesting, just like how they are starting to use skirmishers, different actual tactics with the hoplite formation, the hoplite phalanxes in battle and stuff. Just found it really, really interesting. Plus, it's like I said, it's on the kind of that generation where Thebes is kind of like on the come up, and I just really, really enjoy that. So there you have it. There's quite a few books, at least I think it was 17 books on Greek history or kind of Greek related stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below what one sounds like kind of the most readable, or one you'd be most interested in taking on in the near future. And if you have some good histories of Greece or kind of Greek related books, nonfiction, leave some comments down below so I can definitely check them out. I feel like Greece doesn't get as much stuff as like Rome, and especially against like Roman classical stuff against medieval stuff. So definitely any love for ancient Greek history would definitely be appreciated. So thank you so much for watching, and whether you're reading books on ancient Greece or not, always remember, read victoriously.